Okay, I'd like to talk about gun crime and possibly a bit about knife crime. Mostly going to be talking about illegal firearms, but I might talk a little bit about legal firearms. So apparently, gun crime is on the increase, especially in London. It's up 20% since I'm not entirely sure what year, but the point is it's up. What I want to know is how and why. In the UK, it is very difficult to get hold of a firearm, and there are only certain firearms that you can have. But what you cannot have is semi automatic full bore rifles, any kind of automatic firearm, any kind of explosive, or a handgun. Now, you can have shotguns on a shotgun certificate, and you can have certain rifles on a firearm certificate, and there's a lot of ins and outs and stuff you need to know, and you have to be licensed. And anyway, moving on from that, obviously in it you can have air rifles and air pistols. In Scotland they need to be licensed, in England they don't, and even then they're only allowed to be up to a certain power. Blank firing guns are legal. I do have a couple here. I'm not really going to talk about them so much. They're mostly here for something pretty to look at. They're orange because that they have to be to comply with the UK law. These just fire blank cartridges. Anyway, back to the point. What I want to know is, how is firearms crime on the increase, especially with handguns and fully and semi-automatic firearms, rifles. Rifles have been banned. Well, semi-automatic full-bore rifles have been banned since, I think it's the Hungerford massacre in 1988. I believe that's when they brought in the Firearms Act 1988 after Michael Ryan, I think it was Michael Ryan, I could be getting mixed up, went on a shooting spree with an L1A1 SLR, a handgun and a shotgun. I'm not really sure what kind of shotgun, but after that they basically banned semi-automatic full-bore rifles. So what's a semi-automatic full-bore rifle? Well, it's basically a rifle with a caliber above 30. I believe. I don't know what the UK government classes as a full bore, but in my opinion, anything above 30 caliber is a full bore, so we'll just go with that. And by SLR just stands for self-loading rifle, so it's a semi-automatic rifle basically. So think of just say you had an AK-47 and you had it on semi-automatic. That's basically a semi-automatic full-bore rifle, but of course it's not capable of fully automatic fire, meaning you hold down the trigger and it basically empties the magazine it basically fires until the magazine's empty. Of course, machine guns like AK-47s and the likes are illegal. I don't know if they've ever been legal. They possibly have, but I'm not entirely sure. And pistols, such as handguns and revolvers, have been banned since the Dunblane massacre of 1996, when what was his name? I think it was Thomas Hamilton went into Dunblane Primary School with 2 pistols and 2 revolvers and a lot of ammunition. I think it was over 800 rounds, and shot up a bunch of pupils and a teacher, and then he shot himself. Yeah, Michael Ryan did the same thing. He also shot himself. So honestly, the pair of them were cowards. With Michael Ryan, he was a bit of a nutter. He also killed his own mum. How anyone could bring themselves to kill their own mum is beyond me. And equally with Thomas Hamilton, I believe he wasn't quite right in the head either. From what I've heard, he was also a paedophile. And I believe that he had his firearm certificate revoked, but because he was friends with the chief of police or whoever it was, he got his firearm certificate given back to him. So after that, of course, handguns were banned. So that was just a little bit of an insight to how our laws came about. And of course, we do have several before and after. You know, we've got the Firearms Act of 1968, which basically says all firearms, rifles and shotguns and handguns have to be on a firearm certificate, and it prohibits the ownership of certain firearms, and it's basically the laws being on of today. It also dictates that air rifles over 12 foot-pounds must be held on a firearm certificate. and air pistols above 6 foot-pound are strictly prohibited under Section 5 of the Firearms Act. Section 5 of the Firearms Act covers handguns, machine guns, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, basically everything that you can't have, even tasers and pepper spray, which to me seems a bit mental. But anyway, moving on. We do also have later firearms controls. I think it's the Violent Crimes Reductions Act of 2005. Although it's not just firearms, it also, I believe, covers antisocial behaviour, sexual assault, that sort of thing. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but it also covers things like blank firers, airsoft, possibly crossbows, knives I believe, but I can't quite remember. But that's not really what this is about. I just thought I should give a bit of an insight into our laws. So now that you've got a bit of an insight, by the way, don't just take my word for it. If you are interested and you do want to know the truth, I do suggest that you look up these laws for yourself and get both sides of the argument, both from anti-gun people. Personally, I can't stand anti-gun people. I'm obviously pro-gun, and the pro-shooting community. So go and speak to Firearms UK. They're on Facebook and Twitter. If you don't know who Firearms UK are and you're interested in firearms, I highly encourage you to visit Firearms UK on Facebook and Twitter, and visit their website at firearmsuk.org. They're a fantastic organisation and they do a lot for the shooting community. Back to the task at hand though, handgun firearms crime. So now that you basically know our firearms laws, question, why do we have firearms crime in the first place, especially with handguns? And how do we have any handgun crime? Because handguns have been banned for over 20 years. Now, from what I've heard, handgun crime has doubled after that ban. So to me that says that the handgun law didn't work. And occasionally you do see on the news as well that there's certain people with stockpiles of firearms and ammunition, everything from pistols to machine guns to rocket launchers. Now I want to know how. Because these things are completely prohibited. You can't have them. There's no one that's really allowed. Now there are certain special licenses that very, very, very few amounts of people can have. You're not even allowed a handgun for sports. The closest thing you can have to a handgun is still semi-automatic. It's chambered in 2.2 rimfire, but it has to have a barrel of a certain length. I can't remember what that length is, and it also has to have this piece of metal coming out of the grip to basically make it longer. And they don't call that a pistol, they call it a small firearm, and these could be obtained on a Section 1 firearm certificate, but they're technically pistols, and I don't think they've ever been used in crime. But so like I said, how are handguns being used in crime? How is there possibly drive-by shootings in the UK, or gangs shooting each other, or robberies with firearms? Now, some may come to the conclusion that firearms such as these, I personally do class these as firearms because for what it's worth they are firearms. Don't be fooled by the funny colour. These really do go over the bang, and if you were somehow able to chamber or fire a projectile, it'll have the exact same effect. But the thing is, you can't really fire a live round through these. If you have any evidence that suggests that you can actually fire a live round through these, I'll listen. And I would like to see your evidence, but there's a few problems with that. One, now this particular blank firing pistol is chambered in 8mm. 8mm by what, I'm not sure, but these are 8mm blanks nonetheless. They function just like the real thing. But bearing in mind, these magazines are built to take a certain size. So how are you going to chamber a live round in there? I'm really not sure. Also, by law, the barrel is plugged with steel. And the evidence that I've heard is if you did drill this out and you were able to chamber or load a live round. By the way, this blank has already been spent. If you do somehow manage to chamber and fire a live round, it would explode, because these are cheaply made. They're not meant to withstand the pressures of a live cartridge. Now, I can most certainly believe that, because these cost £100. Now, these are meant to replicate a Glock firearm, of course, but live firing Glocks cost around $800 US. I don't know what that is in British pound sterling, but let's just say for the argument's sake, that's £800. Well, there's obviously a difference between this and an £800 gun. Maybe it's just the quality, I'm not sure, but there are certain tolerances these have to meet, otherwise they will just explode in your hand, which is why if you overload a cartridge or somehow do manage to fire the wrong cartridge in a firearm, it'll explode. But let's suppose you do manage to do that. Maybe there's a way you could do that. Maybe you could mill it out or drill it out and chamber a live round. Well, I've got another question. Where are you getting the live ammunition from? Because it's illegal to have live ammunition in your possession without a certificate. And if you have that live ammunition in your possession without a certificate, guess what? That's a criminal offence punishable by 5 years in prison. So you're already breaking the law. Not only that, you're actually manufacturing a firearm. You need to have a Section 5 firearm certificate, which you have to get directly from the Home Office. You cannot get this from the police from your local police station. You must obtain it from the Home Office, and it's up to them. And only a small amount of individuals are able to obtain these. Obviously, manufacturing is one of them. I believe military and law enforcement is another one. By that does not mean, a soldier can take his firearm home. That is wrong. So if you do convert this into a live firearm, how are you doing that? And if you do, you're committing a crime. So you've committed two crimes there. You're manufacturing a firearm, and you have ammunition in your possession illegally. So you'd have 5 years in prison for having the ammunition, and that's another 5 years for manufacturing, and I believe it's the same for dealing a firearm and murder, because if you're doing all these things, I'm assuming you're going to shoot someone. I could be wrong, but if you're illegally obtaining a firearm and illegally converting it or obtaining ammunition, well, you're probably up to no good. Maybe not. You might have good intentions. I don't know. I can't see it though. But you're committing a crime. Same with these revolvers. The barrel is also blocked, and the cylinder does not reach the barrel. So, and again, you'd have to mill this out. Again, committing a crime. So I'm just sort of getting that argument out there for why criminals are not using these and converting them. And assuming criminals are buying these and converting them, like I said, that's a crime. And by banning these or licensing these, you're only going to punish individuals like myself who use these just for a hobby. It's fun to just shoot these now and then. Same goes for decommissioned or deactivated firearms. I believe for automatic machine guns and handguns, semi-automatic handguns, they weld the trigger shut, they open up the gun, they snip off the firing pin, weld the remainder of the firing pin into the firearm, and they cut away half of the chamber, and they fill the barrel with steel. By the time you've milled all that out, you'd be cheaper buying a new firearm. That would be a very lengthy and difficult process of milling that firearm out and re-welding the half of the chamber, assuming you can find that half of the chamber or fix it. And even if you do weld a new part onto the chamber onto the firearm, as soon as you put a round through that, it's going to explode. Also, once again, where are you getting the ammunition for the firearm? If someone could illegally obtain ammunition, I'm pretty sure they could probably illegally obtain the firearm. Because you'll get just as much jail time for illegally obtaining ammunition as you will the firearm. Now, it is perfectly legal for anyone over 18 to buy a deactivated firearm. Same with these, by the way. Anyone over 18 can buy these as well. You can also get them to the post delivered to your front door. But bearing in mind, deactivated firearms are not cheap. For an AK-47, you're looking at least £300. And for that's a cheap firearm. Most other deactivated firearms cost hundreds, much more. For a deactivated 1911, you're looking around the same amount for a live firing one. You're looking about £800 of Gunstar anyway. And again, where are you getting the ammunition from? And this is assuming that you already have the milling machine. I mean, a metalwork lathe or a CNC machine, they cost thousands. Now I know you can get cheap hobby ones, but that's not really the point. For the most part, the good ones cost a lot of money. So I don't really see how you could reactivate them. Airsoft. Anyone over 18 can own an airsoft gun, or could buy an airsoft gun. You can be younger than 18 on them. Now, I think I have heard a few times about people suggesting you could reconvert these. Now that is just so dumb. There's no way that an airsoft gun could withstand the pressure of a live cartridge. Again, owning the cartridge is illegal. You can't just strip out an airsoft gun because it's completely different. It's not the same. You need a whole new everything. You need a new barrel, cylinders, a gas system. Airsoft guns don't even have gas systems. You could argue that the gas guns do, being gas, but it's completely different, and they cannot withstand the pressure of a firearm. There's a reason why airsoft guns are so much cheaper than a live firearm. Now, yeah, I do understand some airsoft guns are expensive, I've seen them, but they're not the same. So back to my original point, how are these criminals getting firearms? Where are they getting from? They're obviously importing them from somewhere, I would assume, or manufacturing them. There is a thing called a slam-fire shotgun. It's literally just a few pieces of pipe and that's it. But then again, where are they getting the cartridges? Maybe look up slam-fire shotgun. Now do so at your own risk. I don't really know if looking up slam-fire shotguns could get you in any kind of trouble or not. It's essentially just a few pieces of pipe welded together with a nail as a firing pin. You drop the cartridge in and you just slam the two pieces of pipe together and it sets off the cartridge. I don't know how effective that is, but that would technically still be a firearm. And if you do that, you've manufactured a firearm, which is a crime. It's illegal to manufacture a firearm without the proper licensing, which most people will not have. Oh, and by the way, it's not individuals that get issued these licenses, it's companies. I'm just going to use Webley and Scott as an example. They're obviously authorised firearms manufacturers in Birmingham. So where do these people get their firearms? How are gangs able to obtain firearms? And terrorists. Although we haven't really had any terrorist attacks with firearms in the UK, at least not to my knowledge, we certainly have in France and Germany. And although semi-automatic firearms are legal in Germany, where are these terrorists getting the machine guns and rocket launchers, as we've seen in terrorist attacks in France, where terrorists have been using fully automatic AK-47s? Because they're not legal there. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.